Welcome to What Do Siblings Talk About?
I'm Jacob,
And I'm Veronica.
and we're siblings.
Yay.
And welcome to episode 001, because we're definitely going to get that far.
That's assuming a lot of episodes.
Yeah, I mean, at least 10,000.
And that we don't reorder any of them along the way.
Right. We can also, of course, include decimal points at the end if we need to adapt a new numbering scheme or maybe letters or go to binary. Plenty of options.
So, even more episodes.
As you will have seen in the introduction, I am Jacob, and this is Veronica, and we're siblings. We're interested in a wide variety of things and thought it would be fun to make a podcast, partially for people to listen to, but partially also just to have interesting conversations. And we're looking at a few different themes. We're going to start off with today a podcast where we review basically a content creator that one of us has found interesting. Today, Veronica, do you want to introduce the person we're going to talk about a little bit?
Sure. So this is Daniel Boland. This was my pick. He is a British expat. I believe he lives in Spain, and he makes videos about a variety of things, mostly commenting on Hollywood celebrities, politics, people in the news, that sort of thing. And basically just does short-ish reaction videos to those about what he thinks about these topics.
So you say short-ish. I would agree so he was new to me. I've only watched him on YouTube. And I would agree in the YouTube context, they're short-ish. I know the YouTube algorithm prioritizes historically in the last few years has heavily prioritized sort of 8 to 20-minute videos. And he's on the shorter end of that.
Yeah.
I think on some content platforms, that would be considered extremely long form, TikTok and the like. Whereas obviously in the podcast world, Joe Rogan's things like, yeah, we're going to talk for 3 hours.
Yeah, I think I'm probably mentally comparing him to podcasts, in which case he's very, very short. Because, he is almost always kind of under the 20-minute mark.
Yep. Good point. So for anybody who doesn't know Daniel Boland yet, I encourage you to look him up. I've watched in the last week about an hour of his material, and I basically just pulled up some of the most viewed, as well as a couple of the more recent ones he's done. And for my money, I'm going to categorize him as, to a large extent, kind of reacting to personality gossip type of news. But Veronica, I'll let you say more on that. I'm basically going to lead with a few questions about what you think and maybe what I think Daniel Boland kind of represents, and maybe pull up a couple short clips of his material. But what do you think about that initial thought about the kind of content he's creating?
No, I think that's fair. A lot of it is, he's reacting to sort of famous events or other interviews he sees, but a lot of it is, there's some that's ideological based, or you might say sort of left-wing, right-wing stuff. But quite a lot of it is just based on personality, kind of.
Even in that regard, I almost said he got involved in political stuff a bit, but when he gets involved in political stuff, like his most recent reaction videos or his videos talking about reactions to the U.S. election in 2024, he's primarily reacting to people who are having fits about the outcome of the election.
Yeah, and I think that's true of a lot of his stuff. Is he's not, if you kind of like scan through all the titles of the stuff he's done, you might think, oh, he's like a right-wing guy or a conservative guy. It's not that. He's reacting to people doing and saying crazy things or things that he thinks are crazy. And it happens that a lot of those people would be in what we would, in America, we would say, oh, this is left-wing, right-wing camp. But I don't think that's his motivation at all. He's just looking for, wow, there's some crazy people out there. I'm going to do a video on that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So the question I would like to kick off with, in part because this seems to be where Daniel got his start, is on some of his. He's made a few videos about Meghan Markle, and you mentioned
That's
this to me when we were initially talking about this, and I think this question might have a couple different ways of answering it. But my initial question for you is, why does Daniel Boland care so much about Meghan Markle?
I don't know. Well, so this is how I found him initially, because I was sort of interested in Meghan Markle, because I mean, I consume a lot of British media, including British news. And so there was a period of time a couple of years ago where she was all over British news and American news. So I was sort of following what she was doing. And I think I was looking for kind of like, what does the everyman British person think about this? Like, I don't want to see what the British talking heads and the American talking heads think about this. I just want to see, like, what do random British people think? So that's how I first came across him. And I mean, maybe that was some of his motivation as well, is he wanted to get out there and say, okay, let's cut through all of the headlines. I'm a regular British person. I'm going to tell you what I think. So that may be part of it. I think some of it may also be because he's not in England anymore. He's in Spain. Mm. And so I would imagine that as, like, the British person in his neighborhood, he was probably getting questions about it.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So, because, it was a big thing for a while.
Your point about the traditional media talking heads is a really good one. I think just this week I saw part of an interview. I don't know how recent it was, but part of an interview with the head of the Australian Broadcasting Company, which is the equivalent of BBC down in Australia. Absolutely shredding Joe Rogan and talking about what a shame it was that Joe Rogan had such a big audience. And then immediately following that up by saying he had never listened to Joe Rogan. So yeah, your point's well taken. Joe Rogan, I think last month had a 30 million, 300 million unique listeners too. And Australia's population
is,
yeah, I think Australia's population is 20 something million. So it's an order of magnitude difference right there. One of the things that kind of interests me about Daniel Boland's talking about Meghan Markle is I listen to a few podcasts, and I have, of course, both male and female friends whom I talk politics and culture and so forth about. And it seems often to me to be a more, this is maybe a topic we'll cover in more detail later. It seems to me more often that women are interested in particular individuals, whereas men will tend to lean toward ideologies or ideas. So one of the things that interested me about Daniel is traditionally I would expect this to be a topic that would be more likely to be covered or more likely to be popular for an influencer who is maybe a woman or whose audience is maybe female. I know YouTube's demographics skew heavily male, especially in the podcast scene. So he seemed unique to me in that regard. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
That I was not aware of that. That is kind of interesting though. And I think I do probably agree. It's sort of the thing that you would see on like a daytime TV show where like three ladies sit on the couch and talk about it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
talking about Meghan Markle on The View would be perfectly normal to me.
Yeah.
Having her on the View. I'm sure she's been on the View. Pardon my ignorance.
I know. This is like Joe Rogan in Australia. I've never seen The View, so I don't know.
I can't claim to have watched much.
Can't count.
All right. So I'm sure there are many people on YouTube who have talked about Meghan Markle, or who produce content similar to Daniel Boland's. He's not one of, the top YouTubers in the world, but he has a large audience. He gets hundreds of thousands of views on videos. What, Veronica, do you think are some of the reasons Daniel Boland, attracts this kind of attention?
That's a good question. Because I've seen a few other people talk about Meghan Markle, including like other British people who are similar. I don't know if I've ever seen another British man doing it in quite the way he is. So maybe that is what makes him unique. He's a guy talking about it.
So can I propose this at a risk of sounding a little gauche? If anybody's watching this on video, Daniel Boland is a good-looking guy. Like
this is true. He's not bad looking. He's also very funny.
Yes,
and you'll see this not just on his Meghan Markle videos, but on any of his videos. He's not just talking about it straight. Like he's really making fun of Meghan Markle in a very humorous way, as well as making a point at the same time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree on that. The point you say where he's making fun of Meghan Markle. Let me hide his beautiful face for now.
He's married.
Well, this is an academic observation.
It's like a Greek statue. You can just admire.
I did notice you get some popular personalities who will observe things, and then you get some popular personalities who will mock. And for some people, mocking is something they do once in a while, and for some people, it's more of a normal thing. So Jordan Peterson, he has this sort of obnoxious, shrew mocking voice he adopts from time to time, and he's not doing it to be funny. He's doing it to try to make a point and try to like embody the kind of shrill attitude that he's talking about. I think Daniel Boland is really good at subtly, or even sometimes not so subtly, mocking. That I think part of his humor is he is very good at sort of aping, and kind of taking to the next level.
Yeah.
The people he's talking about.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point.
Would you, in thinking about similar people, I was wondering, is subtle mocking a distinctly British mode of humor? I think Monty Python.
It may.
It's full of mocking, mostly over the top.
Yeah.
But if there's a cultural thing going on,
that's certainly possible. That may be. Like I mentioned earlier, I consume a lot of British media, and a lot of British comedy. And I've never really sat down and analyzed why I think British comedy is funny and largely American comedy is not. But that might be it. I like mocking people.
Yeah, who was behind the British version of The Office?
Frodo,
famous guy, Ricky Gervais.
Ricky Gervais. Oh yes.
So, I think in recent times, some of the more popular British entertainers
canceled and then uncanceled, I think.
Yeah, well, I think I don't know how much he got canceled. I think he's just been generally sort of sliding away from the left, not even necessarily toward the right, but he had an hour comedy special come out about a year ago that I enjoyed parts of. But Ricky Gervais' style of comedy, and I think this is true of the British version of The Office, it's more mocking. It almost requires sort of eliciting a sense of shame or the impression that there is somebody should be ashamed of something they're doing. It seems to me I see more of that in mainstream British comedy these days, at least the stuff that I encounter. Whereas Daniel Boland's more of a throwback a little bit to something that was maybe more prevalent in the post-war, the 60s and 70s. Your highly
like your Monty Python.
educated. Yeah, your Oxbridge educated type of British comedians. Do you know where
you have your
Boland
like
was educated?
heavy sarcasm and
Yeah. Do you know anything about Daniel Boland's academic background?
Oh, I don't know. I want to say he's from the north, somewhere in England.
If he's from the north, he doesn't have an accent. We'll listen to a little bit later, or he doesn't have a northern accent.
No, he does. He doesn't have a super strong accent. But I believe he teaches English in Spain, so I assume he has some sort of degree to be doing that.
Yeah, my impression is he went to something like Oxford or Cambridge, if not one of those in particular. So his style of podcast, and I encourage everyone, if anyone is listening, go look up Boland on YouTube. He doesn't have a lot of shorts on his own channel, but even just watching a little bit of one of his videos, and you'll get an idea. A lot of what he does is reaction content. His own recording is relatively I wouldn't even say relatively, it is unscripted, pretty clearly, and he doesn't even do much work on setting up the room he's in. He could very well just be recording on a camera, but then his post-work editing to edit content in that he is reacting against is quite impressive. Would you agree with that?
He has some pretty excellent editing skills. Yeah, it's funny because he looks like sometimes you'll see a video and he could be like captured in a basement somewhere. That's like how bare bones it is. But then yes, his post editing is very, very good, and I assume he does all of that himself, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I'll pull up Daniel here just to give an example of his own self-description of his content style. So here we have him. Hopefully I'm sharing the audio, otherwise this will be unfortunate.
I mean, you could just watch him dance around the room. That would you'd still get some sort of idea. I can't hear audio.
No audio. Okay, folks, here's our first editing fail of the podcast. So I need to make sure I'm sharing the audio here. All right, I think it'll work this time. We're back to our iconic Daniel Boland shot. So he's comparing some of the content he's reacting to, which is very highly staged and very pre-scripted.
Interior, right? A facade, not like the Daniel Boland show. This is raw emotion, minimal editing. You know, I just switch the camera and I say, "Go! What do you think about that, Danny? Go!" You know, that's why I'm just so much better than all these other people.
And here's an example of a reaction, but that's primarily what I wanted to share.
Yeah, the self-depreciation.
Yeah, and then he's definitely, he knows how to perform because he knows to look directly into the camera, and he's this is me unscripted. I'm not I'm not like these people. So I appreciate that. I think one of the first things when I meet someone is I like to talk to the real person, not the facade that most people present in a public situation.
Yeah. Well, I think
so
most people want to talk to the real person.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone knows they want that though, or maybe some
Mm.
people are scared of that.
They can't quite articulate what it is that they're wanting.
Yeah, everyone should want that, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah. So in general, on the topic that we just had that clip of Daniel talking about, he claims a significant difference. Actually, this goes back to the old Marshall McLuhan saying that the medium is the message. I didn't even realize that until just now, that Daniel Boland actually, he's actually comparing himself in that video I just showed to people who are performing staged reactions to the 2024 presidential election results. And he says the difference between them, a principal difference. He doesn't say content. He says the principal difference is effectively the staging, editing, and preparation between himself and the people he's sort of ridiculing.
Yeah. Well,
I would
mean,
add
that's
also content length.
Yeah. I mean, that goes back to, I mean, maybe why he started the channel. Because one of the things that I didn't like about Meghan Markle, and I think Daniel was the same in this, is that she was very fake, right? It was this fake persona that she was acting all the time. And that was really annoying because you could never sort of get the truth out of her. And that's something, if you watch a lot of, especially his early videos about Meghan Markle, like he'll pick up on things like that, where she's pretending to be someone she's not. And I think that is essentially what he's talking about with the 2024 reaction videos as well, right? Sure, they're upset, but they've gone over the top to make a
performatively
performance
upset
out of it.
Yep.
And so they're putting out this facade of something that they're not really like that. They don't go around every day, they don't wake up and just act like that all the time.
Do you think, though, the kind of people Daniel's talking about, these performatively upset people, hopefully they're not performatively upset when they're by themselves, but do you think they might be performatively upset sort of habitually when they're around almost anyone else?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I've only met maybe one person who was like this every time I met her. And it was very, very jarring because she was like a 2024 reaction video all the time. It was very weird. So I would hope that my experience is reflective of the normal world and that there are not very many people who act like that all the time.
Yeah, actually, a thought crossed through my head when you said that. So this is kind of I don't want to say it's the opposite end of the spectrum, but I was at a relatively conservative place of worship on Sunday. And the impression I was getting from the main person leading worship at this place was, this person is just in performance mode 24/7. Probably not backstage, but anytime this person's with like a member of the general public, to me, it just seemed it seemed a little insecure, but also like this person thought so much of themselves that they had to kind of speak differently when they were speaking to the normies.
But I think you get that with a lot of public figures. They're just so used to being watched, and in this day and age of being videoed all the time.
Actually, a name I want to throw out there that falls in this camp so hard for me is Vivek Ramaswamy. I listened to half an hour of an interview with him when he was initially running for the Republican nomination, and I just had to stop.
Yeah, because
it wasn't the content; it was
real anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
and I wonder, maybe you do get to a point where you act like that so much because of your job or your position that you never do turn it off anymore. Like that just becomes who you are.
So I think there's clearly an appetite for this more real conversation style. And it's not even necessarily so much that it's unscripted. It's that it's down to earth. I remember something our dad said to me when I was initially starting to write essays in middle school or high school, where I was definitely styling my writing on the kind of writing I was reading, a lot of which was fairly old literature. And so what I was writing did not sound like the way I speak.
Like you.
And
yeah.
Yeah. And our dad specifically said to me, try to write as if it was something you were saying. And I thought I think that has been great advice. Where with writing, hopefully you have a much more thoughtful, more condensed, maybe more organized form of what you would otherwise be saying in a general conversation, but it's still just the real you. And I think that is what there is a real appetite for in this day and age, that everybody knows the talking heads on TV, that politicians, a lot of people, unfortunately, in faith-based situations, a lot of people in welfare. Now, actually, I take that back about welfare. I've worked in welfare situations that have some great people. But in a lot of contexts, people feel like they have to play a role, or like they deserve to play a role. And so you're not getting, I don't know, from the heart. So, yeah, and there's clearly an audience. I think this is Joe Rogan's shtick as well. And I think a lot of the more popular podcasters and sort of alt media figures across the spectrum, this is what people are getting from them.
Yeah.
I wonder though if, well, first off, would you agree with that, or do you have anything?
No, I think that's true. And I think there is we've sort of seen, like you're talking in the alt scene, of people who are just, they want to be unapologetically who they are, right? They're not gonna play a role. They're not gonna say, what they're kind of quote unquote supposed to say. They're just gonna do and say what they think. And I, like you're saying, I think there is a real appetite for that, right? People want to be told the truth. And even if you don't agree with someone or it offends you, they would rather see, a genuine something from somebody rather than, somebody covering something up.
Yeah. Which is, so then I do want to get back to Daniel Boland shortly here, but thinking about him makes me think of some sort of deeper or more broad questions as well, which is on this social topic of what people are hungry for, especially younger people. I think I heard the statistic recently that cable subscriptions have dropped in the United States from about 140 million 20 years ago, which is around when it peaked, to I think 80 million or so. I could have these numbers largely off, but 140 million of American households 20 years ago, you're talking about 70 or 80% of Americans had cable. And now I believe the average in the median, it doesn't matter what you pick, age of the cable subscriber today in 2024 is around 70. So this is not a social shift, it's a generational shift. Which I think makes sense. It's the same thing we're seeing with respect to institutions. But is there something to be said for, and will we see in time a swing back to this more manufactured or more, you could almost call traditional media, or these more performative demonstrations, not manufactured, but self-possessed and prepared and
more like polished.
I mean, polished.
Well,
we
I don't know that we will, because I don't I mean, there's always going to be everything. I think has a pendulum swing back and forth a little bit, but I think maybe what the difference is when modern technology, I guess, whatever you want to call it, modern media first came about. I think it was lumped together with the rest of TV and radio. And a large part of that was wrapped up in escapism, right? This was a way to kind of get away from things. And
right. 95% of my life I'm spending around people who are already salt of the earth.
Yeah.
Normal.
Yeah. And that
genotypes.
is changed. And that's not, I mean, I don't think that's going to flip back unless there's an apocalypse and we lose all our technology. Because what we have now is people spend.
I think all it would take is China taking TSMC out. But
people spend the majority of their time connected to media. And so when they want to escape, they look for people who are real. There's salt of the earth people. So we have sort of flipped what people want, and I don't see that changing unless we somehow get rid of a lot of media and technology.
Yeah, that's a fantastic analysis, I think. And what these new popular types like a Daniel Boland or a Joe Rogan do retain from the old style is that you are taking the cream of the crop. You're not just taking the average down-to-earth person on the street. You're taking a down-to-earth person who has an unusual ability to communicate. I think that's probably the number one characteristic you're going to see of successful content creators in the alt media space. But hopefully also an unusually impressive ability to sort of discern the truth of things or what's under the surface.
I mean, like you pointed out earlier, he's not bad looking. He's, he's articulate. For American audiences, he has a British accent, which, we always
counts
like
for
that.
a lot.
That's why he has the audience he does, and Joe Smith from down the street doesn't.
So briefly on that topic, Daniel Craig.
Yes.
In the Knives Out movies, I've only watched the first one through. I really like it.
Terrible American accent.
Well, he has a very intentionally rural Louisianan or old school Louisiana accent. Do you have any idea if that's remotely realistic? Because he just sounds so bad to me when he talks in those movies.
I've never heard someone talk like that in real life. Now, I don't live in Louisiana, so maybe there are people who do talk like that, but I've never heard them.
Yeah. To our single listener, if you are from an old part of New Orleans, let us know if Daniel Craig.
Us. We have no email or means for you to contact us, but
we'll have a Substack, and this will be on YouTube, so feel free to try.
Leave a comment. No, I've noticed this. So I mean, quite a few British people just have terrible American accents, and vice versa. But something I've noticed is
Daniel Craig is such a good actor. I feel like he would have
could have better coaching.
Yeah, so I wonder if it's me. I just don't know.
Maybe I don't know. I've found a lot of the British actors who have what are considered good American accents still sound off to me.
And like Benedict Cumberbatch.
Usually, I think they have this sort of aggressive, slightly New York accent. And that, that's how I pick it up. Even someone like, what's his name, House, who has a fantastic American accent. It sounds slightly off. Yeah, and again,
but his Hugh Laurie's accent in House is so good, you can mistake it for an American person who just has a slight personal lilt to the way they talk.
No, I wouldn't listen to his accent and go, he's not American. I would go, he could very well be American. He's not from where I am from, though.
Yeah. All right, so back to Daniel Boland. Sorry to have disappointed our audience. So looking at my notes, I took Is there, in your opinion, Veronica, a particular type of public figure or a particular type of behavior which arouses his ire?
Well, I mean, I think we touched on this before. It's the people who he thinks are fake, right? The
Yeah.
people who are, do one thing and say another thing. So I mean, very
Does he make any
often,
videos though about British politicians? Because there's plenty of fakery there.
Yeah. Occasionally he does. I mean, he gets a lot of Hollywood types. Who, I mean, there's
Yeah,
there's a
like I
lot of
just watched a
content
Will
there
Smith
for
reaction video.
people, for people being fake. And he definitely does American politicians way more than he does British. And I'm not sure if that's his interest or if he's realized like, oh, this is what gets the views. It's mostly Americans watching me.
I was listening to John Anderson, who is a former Prime Minister of Australia. I hope I have that right. Pretty sure it was Prime Minister for the Conservative Party. He has a podcast now where he interviews people. And a few weeks before the election, he was interviewing someone, and they were talking about the American election. And either Anderson or his guest said something along the lines of, well, let's be honest about this. The American election is going to matter more to Australia than the Australian elections will. So I think there's a lot of that around the Anglosphere. I
was listening to a podcast over the weekend, which is British people commenting on British things, and they were joking about how so many people in England are interested in the American election that they should be allowed to vote.
Just make it a colony of the United States, and
pretty much just sort of reverse it.
That's I'll briefly comment on that to say there has been a huge cultural shift between the United States and Great Britain, and something is going on in Great Britain or the United Kingdom. I can't pinpoint it specifically. Something's going on there where they've kind of given up.
Well, they sent all of their rebellious people to the U.S. and Australia, so anyone who's left they're the people who were not rebellious or adventurous in any way, shape, or form.
I think though they've been through too many generations of just a dramatic loss in national pride. There was sort of a final glorious moment with not just the end of World War II, but Britain spent a fair amount of its remaining ability to have a world-dominating navy to kind of finish cleaning things up in the 1940s and 50s. But then in part because of the U.S.'s ruinous Lend-Lease agreements with Europe, the U.S. basically bankrupted the U.K. through the 1970s. And that was, as far as I can tell, largely a large factor in the British manufacturing sector just getting decimated.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just throw this out there as something has gone on in the United Kingdom. And I think part of the reason they look to the United States is there's a dynamism here, which is no longer in the UK. But the dynamism didn't need to be in the United Kingdom in the 1930s or the 1890s for the United Kingdom to still be the dominant kind of cultural force in the Anglosphere. So I don't think you have to have the American style dynamism to be culturally interesting and relevant. But something's gone wrong. So
yeah, that's an interesting point. And I wonder.
I agree with you. All the crazy rebellious Britons were shipped off or voluntarily left,
bred out of
for the United States. So I mean, go watch Downton Abbey. That's obviously it's a set piece, but it's also somewhat illustrative of the people who stayed.
That's interesting because I feel like there's sort of like pockets of national pride in Britain but I think you're right. It's sort of disappearing. And I wonder if now that the Queen has been dead for a few years, if that's going to fall off even more. Because I think she was just being a national institution for as long as she was, that was sort of a unifying effect. And I mean, whatever
Yeah.
you think of King Charles, he's not the same, and
Well,
he's never going to be.
yeah. Well, and I mean, part of what made the Queen so incredible was the fact that she was Queen from such a young age and for so long. Like
Yeah,
King Charles, regardless of his personality and efforts, isn't going to have
he
that.
can't live that long.
But yeah, we're rapidly moving toward the question of the rise and fall of civilizations, which again, an interesting topic. But back to
We've
Daniel Boland briefly.
strayed from Daniel Boland.
Yeah, we've strayed. So I think I largely agree with your assessment about what he goes after. He does seem to have a penchant for the more relevant popular figures who exhibit this kind of fake behavior or persona, which maybe explains the Meghan Markle thing, as well as American politics, looking at American politics.
Yeah.
Do you think this is genuine, or do you think this is what Daniel knows will get views, or do you think that question is kind of irrelevant?
It's probably some combination of things. I mean, I think American media kind of dominates the world. So, I mean, like we were talking about with the election, like so many other countries are way interested in our election. And I think that goes for the rest of our media as well, is other countries, especially other English-speaking countries, are way more interested in our media than we are in theirs, typically.
Or in ours sometimes.
Yeah, or in ours. So I think there is an element of, he's going to comment on Hollywood movies or, TV stars from America because they're way more famous than any of the ones in England, by and large. But yeah, it's probably
Spain
some
point.
combination of he knows this is what's going to interest people, and get more views. But I think also maybe just naturally what he's viewing himself, when he goes to consume media for his personal entertainment, these are the people he's also seeing.
Yeah. Or if he's also engaged with English-speaking people in Spain,
yeah,
they're probably going to gravitate toward the more popular English language content. So,
right. Yeah.
Why do you think Daniel Boland likes Jordan Peterson?
I mean,
so let me pause. Let me
see. He normalizes being a white male and not being sorry for it.
Yeah, that's not a bad point. Let me pause here to share Mr. Boland again.
He does.
See if I
he
can
does
do it
love Jordan Peterson quite a lot.
The right way here. So here we have Daniel at the end of a. Look at the title of this episode from Daniel Boland. Jordan Peterson, all caps, destroys Meghan Markle. It's like a nexus of Daniel's favorite things. So I'll just play a little bit here.
I need to reach as many people as possible, and then I will get to meet my hero, Jordan. That's the only reason I've got a YouTube channel. I want to meet Jordan Peterson. Let's make a wish come true.
That's just amazing to me.
The thing is, I mean, he's slightly joking, but I think he's completely serious about that. He does like Jordan Peterson, and he would absolutely love to meet him. And I mean, it's not like a Jordan Peterson tribute channel. It's just, that's
right.
sort of the main perk that Daniel would like from becoming famous would be someday to meet Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, and spoilers for that video, which is about 20 minutes long, it does feature Jordan Peterson clips. However, Jordan Peterson destroying Meghan Markle is a little bit strong, I would say. So temper your expectations.
Yeah, Jordan, I don't think he really goes out. I mean, he goes after a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, and this would be, I asked about, or I sort of commented on the kind of content and the kind of people Daniel Boland is into, in part because he does kind of deviate from what you see with a lot of the more traditional male alt media figures. So Jordan Peterson isn't going to go after Meghan Markle because Jordan Peterson fundamentally and profoundly doesn't think Meghan Markle matters very much.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
she's not even on
yeah.
his screen of relevance.
Yeah, so when something was brought up to Jordan Peterson about Meghan Markle, he commented on it, but even in commenting on it, he sort of compared it to what he thought was a more relevant
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe that is some of what is attractive about Daniel Boland is, for some people, Jordan Peterson is just too heady, right? Like he gets very deep and
Yep.
very big picture, and he has very long videos. And, some people just they don't want to see that. It's too much. And Daniel Boland can take some of the same general concepts and apply them to someone like Meghan Markle, who everybody knows. Or he did a video on Wicked, which I haven't seen yet, but I'm sure is entertaining.
Yeah.
So to be able to sort of apply some of these huge big picture things to someone who, is on the cover of magazines, I think it's a useful role he's filling.
So to make a quick comparison, maybe Jordan Peterson would be more like a C.S. Lewis character, with Daniel Boland being, albeit less popular, at least now, more like a J.R.R. Tolkien character.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis was and is obviously a hugely popular Christian writer, but he himself, Lewis, expressed a great admiration for what Tolkien could do, because Tolkien could tell a story which basically conveyed the same truths, but you didn't have to be interested in reading, a 300-page, interesting but fairly academic description of what love is.
Yeah.
To really kind of get a real sense of that.
To get it, yeah. He almost Boland almost reminds me a little bit of like a political cartoonist, where it's like you're saying, someone can write a very detailed essay explaining why, whatever position is incorrect or correct. And then the cartoonist can just come and in one or two frames make the same point, but in a sort of humorous way that is accessible to way more people.
Excellent. All right, Veronica, are you ready to transition to our final segment here?
Yeah. Is it what I think it is? Sure.
I think it's what you think it is. We're about to find out. So I will yet again share my screen here. And if I can do this successfully. So
we're done talking with Daniel Boland.
We're done talking,
unless by
Daniel
some
Boland.
miracle he comes up in Wikipedia.
Very good segue. Thank you, Veronica. So the idea of this segment is Veronica and I are interested, I should say you, Veronica, and I are interested in a lot of things and in the connections between a lot of things. So I have told people I meet that one of my pastimes sometimes after a few drinks is to just go and read Wikipedia for an hour, an hour or two. So just lemonade, of course, tonight. But
just go down the rabbit hole of links from one page to the next.
There you go. Whatever strikes my fancy. So the idea, though, here is we are going to pull up a random Wikipedia page. We're going to go to Wiki Roulette right here. And we're going to give ourselves the grace of up to 2 rerolls in case we really feel like it's something we can't speak to with any kind of interest. And we'll have to decide on those. Veronica, are you ready to go?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Page is Pycnospore. Pycnospore. So this is an unfortunate page because there's no article on Pycnospore.
Uh-oh.
So I say we get a reroll. I could talk a little bit about the Greek roots, maybe, of Pycnospore.
Does that count for one of our rerolls, or does it not count because there's no page?
I think it does count. I think we should lock ourselves in. Hardcore. All right. Anil Khandelwal. Not sure how to say that. Current member of the board of Karenga District Local Government and a senior advisor at KPMG. multinational professional services network. Veronica,
This,
do you want to talk about Anil from Uttar Pradesh, or shall we sacrifice our final reroll?
I have no idea who this person is. May as well. We're already 2 rolls in. It can't get worse, can it?
Can't get worse.
Famous last.
Okay, this actually is a topic I could talk about for a long time. We have the Lingen nuclear power plant. So here's the brief start. Lingen nuclear power plant is an inactive nuclear power plant in Germany. Now that's a bit of a what's the word for something that's you're just saying the same thing twice?
I know, redundant.
Yeah, that's well.
Redundant, there was another word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Like
Germany
bread.
has closed all its nuclear power plants. Close to Emsland nuclear power plant. It was constructed between 1964 and 1968 as a demonstration of safe and reliable nuclear power. So this plant was permanently shut down in 1977. So this is in the northwest of Germany, a little bit north actually of where our mother's side of the family would have come from.
Yeah, it's like
near the Dutch,
near the Netherlands border.
near the Flandrian border. Yeah. So one of the things that I recently learned about nuclear power actually is that the UK, and this is another place where the UK's decline is of interest to me, is the UK had in the 1970s a dominance in the world's nuclear power field. I believe at one point the UK had 24 nuclear reactors in the mid-70s. The United States had 12, and Russia had 3, and that was it. And now electrical power in the UK is like double what it is in mainland Europe. I think it's double accounting for inflation what it was in the UK 15 or 20 years ago. So that's one thing to observe. But in 1975, there was a big oil shock. I believe I have that year right. And that actually inspired France in particular to build a whole bunch of nuclear reactors. Now, unfortunately for them, they built them all at the same time. And as a result, all the engineers and professionals who built the nuclear reactors then retired before they needed to build another round of nuclear reactors. So that's where France is now. And now they kind of have to rebuild from the ground up.
Just no,
but as it is
anymore.
Yeah, it's a problem. We actually have that problem in the U.S. with space technology. They went back to try to rebuild some 1950s or 60s, I want to say Saturn rocket boosters a few years back, and they pulled out the engineering design drawings, and they discovered that the design drawings, unlike today, CAD drawings where a machine is building stuff to an incredibly precise level, the design drawings the engineers were using in the 1950s and 60s were not specific enough to actually rebuild the same rockets from the design drawings. They actually relied on the people doing the work to know how to do it and what they were doing and kind of what the whole function of the enterprise was.
That's
so,
wild.
And actually, to jump to Germany in a similar regard, at the end of World War II, the German armed forces were disbanded. One shouldn't be surprised. And that, of course, included the Luftwaffe, the Air Force. Mm-hmm. So then the Luftwaffe was reconstituted, I believe, in around 1957. And part of the reason I know this is because they purchased a whole bunch of U.S., I believe McDonnell, but F-104 starfighters as their initial fighter aircraft. And in the process of the next 4 or 5 years, they crashed a majority of them. Because basically they had lost, the same thing had happened. They had had enough of a gap between the older professionals, some of whom were probably executed or jailed in the denazification efforts in Germany after the war. But there had been enough of a gap. They no longer had, the wise older people to kind of pass on skills
all
to the
their
younger
knowledge.
generation.
Yeah.
And it took the German Air Force like 20 or 30 years to kind of bring things up to standard again. So anyway, if Germany wants to go back to nuclear, they're gonna have to fight that.
Be in trouble. Well, the last one.
Before I run my mouth, do you have any additional?
I was gonna say I was just looking. The Emsland nuclear power plant only closed in 2023.
Okay,
And that looks
so that would have been the one
That was one of the
That would have
last
been,
ones.
yeah, one of the ones. The German Green Party won a large number of seats the last important national elections, and so are effectively took power. Although, like most parliamentary systems, they're not holding a majority. But one of their promises was, and one of the things that they required of any coalition partner was to close the remaining nuclear plants in Germany, which Germany is now reaping the fruits of. Volkswagen, for the first time in their history, is actually closing factories. They haven't actually closed them, but they're going to shortly because energy costs are so high and because they've let China take their manufacturing dominance.
Yeah. Well, then you have Ukraine on top of it, so they lost all of their Russian oil.
Yeah. Yep. Cheap Russian energy imports. Yep. Which not a great bet. All of that, maybe Germany might be a general topic to talk about in the future because the political situation there is wild, and some would compare it to the U.S., but I think it is dramatically different in some regards. The Sarah Wagenknecht Party and the Alternative for Deutschland there's some crazy stuff going on over there. So we could have a really I would be interested in having a very uninformed conversation.
What about what they're doing over there?
Yeah, about what the heck is going on over there. The final tidbit I would like to throw in about nuclear power plants is that you probably know this, Veronica, but the reason our father was born in South Carolina is because at the time, our grandfather was working at the Savannah River plant, which was a very early nuclear power and nuclear weapon related endeavor, manufacturing tritium, which is used for nuclear weapons. I don't know if it's also used for nuclear power plant materials, but tritium is an isotope of hydrogen. It's hydrogen with, I believe, 2 additional neutrons attached. So normally hydrogen would be one electron, one. I'm blanking on the word. What's the positive?
Proton?
Positive particle. Proton. Yeah, 1 electron, 1 proton. So then you have deuterium, which is maybe tritium is just 2 additional neutrons. Because it might go hydrogen, deuterium, tritium.
I don't know.
Anyhow,
I don't know.
that is beginning to hit the limits of my knowledge of nuclear chemistry and engineering.
Somewhere I have a bunch of essays on the Savannah River plant because Granddaddy taught me how to take notes, like formal note taking, bullet points,
cool.
things like that. Because he was a technical writer. So,
yep.
Sometime when I was in high school, like he essentially sort of ran like a little mini class for me and taught me how to do that. But basically all of his assignments were surrounded by are based on the Savannah River plant. So I have a lot of random essays about that and then notes about it, which are kind of funny.
That might be something interesting to dump into an AI bot at some point. If it's too long to like read through in a convenient time frame. Well, I believe that is all that I have. Veronica, is there anything else that siblings talk about that you would like to cover?
Well, there are a lot of things that siblings talk about. And
in the context of today.
No, I think we've covered a lot. Hopefully we'll get Daniel Boland some new viewers, and maybe
he'll come on the show.
Day.
There we go.
That will be our goal for the podcast. We get to meet our hero, Daniel Boland.
All right, so like and subscribe so we can meet Daniel Boland. Thanks, everybody.